right. I think we are live. Oh, the dogs are there, Alexander. The dogs have gone live with us as well.
They're very excited by the fact that we are speaking to our viewers.
Okay, we're
They'll calm
live.
down.
We should be live now. We're waiting for people to jump on board here as we are live. Let's wait for some people to jump on, and we will be talking about the latest breaking news from the Mueller report. We have 27 people now have jumped on, so I guess we can begin. This is breaking news,
Yes.
hot off the presses, as they once would say,
hmm
back in the day when we had presses. Alexander, if you guys hear me okay, if my sound is good, let me know, everybody. Apologize for the last live that we did that the sound was a little off, but I hope this sounds a lot better. If it's a little loud, let me know. If it sounds good, also let me know. I really appreciate it. I'd like to welcome everyone to this live. We have very, very new breaking news. Alexander actually just WhatsApped me, and he told me, "Hey, Alex, this is just breaking right now." The title, I'll read you the title from Zero Hedge, Alexander, and then we can
hmm
begin. So Zero Hedge just broke this story. Their title is Russiagate ends, Mueller finds no Russia collusion, leaves door open on obstruction. Alexander, you want to begin with your first initial thoughts as to this breaking news?
Right. Well, we've had 2.5 years of obsessive investigation. We had the House Intelligence Committee looking into this. We've had the Senate Intelligence Committee looking into this. They both colluded that there had been no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians during the 2016 election. This despite endless attempts to argue otherwise by the Democrats, by Hillary Clinton herself, by the news media, a constant drip of leaks claiming that there was active cooperation throughout the election between the Trump campaign and the Russians, and the two committees in Congress said that there was none. And then we were told, wait for Mueller. Mueller is going to find the evidence. He's going to prove that the conspiracy took place between the Trump campaign and Donald Trump himself and the Russians, and that Donald Trump is really a Russian agent. And again, Mueller has now reported after an extreme 2.5 years of investigation, and he has concluded that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians during the 2016 election. No conspiracy at all. So all those thousands upon thousands of headlines, all those endless allegations, all those huge conspiracy theories that were being floated across the media for all those years, all that painstaking investigation has drawn a total blank. And what you and I were saying right from the start, that the conspiracy did not exist, we now know for a fact that that is true. Now, I'm going to take issue with one part of the Zero Hedge headline. In my opinion, they are misreading Barr's letter. Barr's letter does not say that the question of obstruction is open. On the contrary, what the letter says, Barr's letter says very clearly, is that that is the Attorney General of the United States, and Rod Rosenstein, who's the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, looked into this very carefully and decided that there was no obstruction.
All right, all right. On that note, Alexander, guys, I'm going to pull up an overlay, and it is from Nadler, and this is a tweet that Nadler sent out. And it goes on the point that you made, Alexander. So this overlay is probably over my face right
Yes.
now, but let me read it to you guys. It says, the special counsel states that while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Alexander, you want to comment on that tweet from Nadler?
Yes, Nadler is being completely desperate. He's trying to continue to allege that there is something still outstanding when there is nothing. He's trying to find something in this report when there is nothing there. Can I explain very simply what the position is? Mueller has investigated the obstruction allegation. He has reported to the Attorney General of the United States, to the Justice Department, and the Justice Department and the Attorney General have looked at the results of his investigation, and they have decided that there was no obstruction. That is their job. It is the Department of Justice that decides whether or not to bring a prosecution. And in effect, what has happened in this case is that the correct procedure has been followed, which was not followed during the Hillary Clinton investigation, when Comey, the director of the FBI, jumped in and decided that there should be no case brought against Hillary Clinton when that was not her job. Can I just say something? It has been very obvious to many people, to myself, to Representative Trey Gowdy of the United States, who was a member of the House Intelligence Committee for a long time, that the Mueller investigation, having long since given up any hope of pinning a conspiracy charge against Donald Trump, was looking to find something on obstruction. That, to me, was what made this investigation a witch hunt, because it was absolutely clear to me right from day one that the obstruction allegation simply did not stick.
All right, let's get to some super chats. Let me put up another overlay from another tweet, and I want you to comment on that. And it's from Paul Sperry. Mueller found no fire to all the smoke collectively created by, and this is the great part, because this is all the name of everybody involved in this, collectively created by McCabe, Comey, Yates, Orr, Page, Strzok, Brennan, Clapper, Schiff, Warner, Simpson, Steele, Jones, Weiner, Shearer, Blumenthal, Sussman, Elias Mook, Palmieri, Podesta, and most of all Hillary, who must now own her defeat. Alexander, do all these people need to be held responsible for what they have done?
Of course they do, but not just them. I mean, we've got to be very clear that the responsibility for this thing, this disaster, is widely shared. And the people who are most to blame for it are the media. There's a brilliant article, you can find it on Zero Hedge, by Matt Taibbi, who makes exactly that point. This absurd story of a conspiracy between Donald Trump and the Russians during the 2016 election, which never had any basis in fact, could never have been pursued with the vehemence and hysteria that it was, unless the media of the United States had supported it. It is the media which kept this whole nonsense alive, and it is the media which, more than any other institution in the United States, should be called to account. I am sorry to say, I don't expect it will, just as I don't expect any of these other people that was mentioned in this marvelous tweet that you have read out to me to be called to account either.
All right, here's a super chat from Kiki. The super chat says, what will be the fallout in the American psyche towards their intelligence agencies now after all their lies have been exposed? Will there be any fallout from this?
Well, I hope there will be, and I think there will be. I mean, we've now had two massive intelligence failures within a relatively short time. First, there was the Iraqi WMD. Now we've had this Russiagate nonsense. And I think it is not before time, if people in the United States stop assuming that what the intelligence community tells them is true. They should always consider all the claims that the intelligence community makes with great skepticism. And when these people come along and say, trust us, we know what we're talking about, the facts show that more often than not, or at least very often, they don't. And sometimes they're out to cause mischief and to mislead.
All right, Jazz actually has a super chat, and this is the question that I wanted to ask you, Alexander. So here it is. Mueller seems to have left a bone for the crazy house Dems to chew on by stating Trump not exonerated on obstruction. And this is the magic question. Why? Why did Mueller leave this door open on obstruction? And I also want you to clarify once again, Alexander, you've clarified it for me a couple of times, why, even though they say Nadler says that there is a door open now for obstruction, which the Democrats will definitely take. They'll take advantage of it. Why that is meaningless, because Barr and Rosenstein have already laid this to rest. So lay out the scenario.
Yes, I mean, first of all, let's be very clear about this. Obstruction is a crime. It's a criminal offence. The people who prosecute criminal offences are the Justice Department. The Justice Department, that's to say, Barr and Rosenstein. Rosenstein is no friend of Donald Trump's. We know that he was talking about putting a wire on himself to try and get Donald Trump removed under the 25th Amendment. We mustn't forget that about Rosenstein. They have looked at all of this and they have concluded that there is no obstruction. We now have a scenario where there was an investigation which looked into a crime which did not exist, that crime being conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And we have an assertion of an attempt to obstruct that investigation into a crime which did not exist, which the Justice Department of the United States has said is unsustainable. Now, to my mind, that makes any thought of the Democrats going down this route and trying to revive the whole obstruction thing absolutely hopeless. And I predict that if they do, it will backfire on them, as the absurdity of it will become increasingly obvious. The one thing I think that has happened is that it's quite clear to me that Mueller did try to prove obstruction. In the end,
not collusion.
Failed.
Not collusion. He
Not
gave up on
collusion.
collusion a long time ago.
He gave
correct?
up on collusion a long time ago. I think he gave up on collusion, if I have to say it, in the autumn of 2017, when there were reports which confirmed that the Trump dossier, the Steele dossier, the dossier that Christopher Steele put together, had no weight, could not be verified. So I think all his focus over the last year has been on obstruction. And I think that he still was trying to find obstruction, trying to pin obstruction on Trump right up until almost the end. Let's be very clear about this. Mueller was no friend to Trump. He wasn't able to. It says that he wasn't able to exonerate the president. He wasn't able to condemn him either. And we mustn't forget that that is also there, apparently, in the report. So the obstruction line, despite Mueller giving it everything he had, failed. But apparently, right up to the very last moment, he wasn't able to give up on it. And as I said, following the correct procedure, the Justice Department has said very clearly that there is no basis of a case there.
You've said that many times, following the correct procedure. I think this speaks to the fact that Barr is now the Attorney General, and it seems that he is putting the House in order. Is that a correct assumption to make? They are now following procedure, something that Sessions, from the moment he recused himself and left it up to Barr, left it up to Rosenstein, everything just went off its wheels.
My own personal view, and I'm so straightforward about this, is that if Barr had not been made Attorney General of the United States, we would have seen this investigation, the Mueller investigation, go on and on and on. And the reason I say that is because it's quite clear to me that Mueller was not prepared to give up on the obstruction route. He was going to go looking for it in every conceivable way that he could until he hoped that he would find something. This became, on obstruction, a fishing expedition. But let me stress again, it caught no fish.
All right. A super chat from Jawako. This in BRICS now dead with the election of Bolsonaro in Brazil, and will Turkey take its place? Thank you for your super chat very much. This is actually something that we'll probably do in a separate video on Bolsonaro and on Turkey and the BRICS. It's an interesting story. We appreciate your super chat, and we will definitely look to handle it in a separate video. That's for sure. From Courtney, thank you very much, Courtney. Thank you, guys. You always bring us the truth. Love you. Thank you very much, Courtney, for your super chat as well. And from Peter, super chat from Peter from New Zealand. I guess you're sending us this super chat. Thank you, Peter, very, very much. Alexander, the Democrats are pinning a lot of hope on the court in New York. Let me show you a tweet. This is from Byron York. He's an excellent writer. And the tweet goes like this. Whatever is in the Mueller report, it ain't over till the Sovereign District of New York sinks. That was a retweet from Brian Fallon, and Byron York commented on that. He says, not just anyone, former Clinton campaign and Justice Department spokesman, in reference to Fallon. So it seems like the Democrats are going to play the New York District Court card. Yeah, what do you make of that? And explain to us a little what that means as well.
Right. The Southern District of New York is, we're talking about actually the district attorneys in the Southern District of New York. They have been pursuing a whole parallel line of investigations alongside the Mueller investigation. And the central figure in all of that is Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's former lawyer who turned on Donald Trump, who's been revealed as a grotesque fraudster and serial liar and utter crook. And of course, Michael Cohen has made all kinds of extraordinary allegations against the President of the United States, who is Donald Trump, and who was his former client. Now, the most serious of those allegations is the one about the supposed breach of the campaign laws, the campaign financing laws, which involves Donald Trump's payment to the two women. Stormy Daniels is one. I can't remember the name of the other.
Karen McDougal. Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Yeah.
Karen McDougal, exactly. Now, the point about that was that was a violation of campaign laws, campaign financing laws. It is accepted by the Southern District of New York, and it is alleged by Michael Cohen that Cohen consulted Donald Trump in connection with that. And some people are trying to claim that this is a major problem for Donald Trump because it involves him in the commission of an offense. Now, I don't buy this argument, and I don't buy it for three reasons. Firstly, I think it would be a very remarkable thing indeed, a very extraordinary thing indeed, if the President of the United States was impeached for violating campaign funding laws on an issue like this. It is widely accepted that if Donald Trump had simply paid off these two women directly and had not gone through Michael Cohen, he would not have committed an offense. So I think this is not going to run for that reason. The second reason is that if you look at the sentencing memo that the Southern District of New York put together against Michael Cohen, I've discussed this in a previous video, though they mention in that memo that Michael Cohen spoke and consulted with Donald Trump, they don't accuse Michael Cohen of engaging in a conspiracy with Donald Trump, and they don't make or refer to Donald Trump as an unindicted co-conspirator. So I don't think that there is any conspiracy being alleged there. And the reason I don't think there is any conspiracy being alleged there is because as Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's lawyer, it must be assumed that what he was telling Donald Trump was that what he was proposing to do to pay off these two women in this complicated way was legal and lawful. And Donald Trump, on that basis, accepted the advice of his lawyer, acted in accordance with that lawyer's advice, did not do anything that was illegal, and did not therefore possess the intention to commit a crime. Intention in this sort of case being extremely important. So I don't think this case in the Southern District of New York is really any sort of danger to Donald Trump, though I know that there are a lot of people amongst the Democrats who want to believe otherwise. There is the last point, of course, which is that Michael Cohen is going to be an absolutely disastrous witness if this case were ever to go to Congress or on impeachment, or were to be prosecuted in any other way. Because as a serial liar, who believes him anyway?
Yeah, I agree with that point wholeheartedly. And since we've discussed now, it seems that the path that the Democrats are going to take is fairly obvious. Then you've broken it down really well, Alexander, and it makes a lot of sense. And Mueller has also kept the door open for the Democrats to take that path. So Mueller has opened up the road for the Democrats to go to. It's obvious now what's happening. Let's switch gears, and I'm getting to you with this question because Marty sent a chat message here where he says, get into the NYPD and the Wiener laptop. And it kind of got my mind moving in that what are the ways that Trump and the White House and the Republicans can hit back at all the crimes? Yes. Okay, you can look at the Wiener laptop in Huma Abedin. Of course, another user in the chat, I forgot the name. Okay. JDAC. Is the Clinton email investigation still open? Okay, another line that they can hit back on. They have a lot of things that they can start to knock down. The Trump White House, they could really start to hit back on. What do you think they're going to do? Or do you think, this is a possibility, do you think Sekulow and Giuliani are going to say, and Barr, all in consultation, are going to say, you know what, President Trump, it's over, let it go, and let's just move forward on policy? Or do you think they're going to start to really hit back at the Democrats? And the amount of pain and damage, and I say that wholeheartedly, not in a partisan way, the amount of pain and damage that they have done to the United States of America. Do you think they're going to hit back?
Right. Well, I think they should. I mean, I think some of the things that happened both before and after the 2016 election were quite simply appalling. I mean, there was clearly, I don't think this is really disputable. There was clearly a campaign within the Justice Department and the FBI to ensure that Hillary Clinton was not prosecuted during the election over her misuse of a private email server to send classified emails while she was Secretary of State of the United States. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I just hear you say that. I hear you say that, and it's amazing. Secretary of State. Yeah, she had a private email server in her house. It's just
that's what she was doing. I mean, I don't think there's any dispute about this, and that's why her emails were turning up in the laptops of people like Weiner, which is, I mean, it's just unbelievable, but it's true. And to me, it's extraordinary that she wasn't prosecuted for it. And even more extraordinary, by the way, since we've been talking about obstruction, that she was allowed, in fact, we now know that she was able to negotiate a deal whereby she destroyed many of those emails, which should have been looked into. So there was that ought to be reinvestigated. The business of the Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch meeting on the tarmac, that ought to be reinvestigated. And then, of course, the whole business of the whole way the Russiagate thing was put together, the role of Glenn Simpson, the role of Christopher Steele, how this extraordinary dossier was concocted, how it was spread through the media, how it was used to justify surveillance of Carter Page through FISA warrants, which were not properly sought or applied for, and where proper disclosure was not made. We've also got the role of Stephen Halpern and quite possibly Joseph Mifsud in trying to bait and provoke George Papadopoulos into all sorts of activities which would have enabled them to construct further this Russiagate narrative.
The professor got missing.
Exactly, the professor gone missing. We've got Glenn Simpson's lies to Congress. I don't think there's any question that he's now lied to Congress. We've found him out in all sorts of contradictions. We've had so much.
What about the unmasking? What about the unmasking?
The unmasking, yeah. Well, I mean, you can go on and on. the unmasking by Samantha Power? Was it Susan Rice? Who knows? The leaks to the media, the leaks of classified information that brought about the destruction of Michael Flynn, who was the National Security Advisor of the United States. The way process crimes, the way people were tricked into lying to the FBI by not being showing their previous testimony and were, as a result, made guilty of process crimes. All of this thing, all of it should be investigated. It cries out for investigation. Clearly, what happened here, it seems to me, was an attempt both to ensure that Hillary Clinton was elected president of the United States and to ensure that Donald Trump was elected president of the United States. And then when Donald Trump was not elected president of the United States, and then when he was elected president of the United States, first to stop him being confirmed by the Electoral College, and then afterwards to delegitimize him and to destabilize his administration. All of this carried out by people within the United States government and in the intelligence community. So all of this should be investigated. Now, will it be? I don't know. I don't know. I'm guessing.
If you were advising, if you were sitting in the Oval Office with Sekulow and with Giuliani, would you push Trump, the president of the United States, to pursue this?
Absolutely. Of course I would. I don't think of any doubt about this. I mean, to my mind, this is a far more serious thing than anything that's been alleged against Donald Trump. I mean, we were talking about the Southern District of New York and the fact that he paid off, or may have paid off, to women. I mean, is that really a more serious issue than all of the things that I've talked about? And, we have people talking about, the Southern District of New York and the danger that poses to Donald Trump. Surely all of these things are a far greater danger to the United States. And I'm not the only person to think this. I mean, Lindsey Graham, who's now the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, thinks this. And I think, as Senator Graham thinks, that special counsel should be appointed to look into them. Will they be? I don't know. I'm very much afraid that all of these people, Barr, Rosenstein, Giuliani, Sekulow, are going to tell Donald Trump, let's try and move on. The one thing which I think might make it happen is if the Democrats do decide to go down this obstruction rabbit hole, and be very clear, it is a rabbit hole. It's not going to lead anywhere in the end. And at that point, it seems to me that the Republicans and the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself and his lawyers and perhaps the Justice Department will say, enough is enough. If you're really going to go on persecuting this man and harassing him in his presidency, then we're going to counterattack by investigating you. And my God, if that happens, that investigation is going to bring up an awful lot.
All right, let's get to some super chats. From Rusko Disco, when you guys would stream all your conversations, you guys would make a lot more money from super chats. All right, also Salava Boga. Okay, thank you very much for that super chat. Alexander, I'm going to get to some more super chats as well. Big fan of the show from XOrionXX. Big fan of the show and love what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much for your super chat as well. And from Jas, a super chat, Alexander. In light of the Dems planning Witch Hunt Part 2, do you think that Trump will now declassify everything and go after the real criminals? It's in line with the question that we were discussing before, if he's going to go after these people. But that's a great point that Jas makes. And we've made it many times in many videos.
Brilliant point.
Why doesn't Trump just declassify? Why didn't he before?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
prior to all of this, and why doesn't he do it now?
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm guessing now, and I really am guessing. Maybe he was afraid, or he was advised that if he did declassify it, it would be taken as a further proof of this bogus, phony obstruction allegation that Mueller was trying to pin on him, and which the Democrats are now going to pursue. But I mean, I absolutely think that he should declassify the law. I know the people, many people in Congress think so. Apparently, the Republicans in the House Intelligence Committee, well, it's not apparently, I mean, they did. They wanted him to declassify all the FISA warrants on Carter Page. And of course he should. He should declassify everything. And it is, I would add, he should try to get as much of the Mueller report published also, because I mean, I think that will show how threadbare the obstruction allegation is and how phony the whole collusion narrative was. So I think we should have as much transparency as possible. If I was in the Oval Office advising Donald Trump, that's what I would do. I hope that is the advice he's getting, and I hope that is what he's going to do. And I'm very disappointed he hasn't done it up to now, but I hope that now, with the Mueller report out of the way, he'll find the means to do it. I think the American people deserve to see this evidence.
I have a question for you on that point of getting the Mueller report out there. Trump has stated that he wants the Mueller report out, all of it. The Democrats, though, are also pushing for all of the Mueller report to come out. They've even got, online lists that you could subscribe to get the report out. Why does Trump and the Democrats both want the report out in transparency? And who do you think has the upper hand?
Well, I think Trump wants it out because, frankly, it's going to exonerate him. And as I said, it's going to expose firstly, how phony the conspiracy narrative always was and how feeble the obstruction narrative is. The Democrats are doing it because they think that they're still hoping that there's something to hide, that Trump is hiding something, and they're still hoping to embarrass him in some way. I would say to the Democrats, be very careful what you wish for, because this time round, I think they're entirely on a hiding to nothing.
All right, a super chat from Sorter. Could U.S. citizens collectively sue class action? That's a great question, because I think of people like Carter Page and Roger Stone, specifically Carter Page, Michael Flynn as well. These guys had their lives ruined. I mean, really ruined by this. What can they do?
Well, what can the American people do? Legally, I don't know. I mean, this is it's a great question. It's a question, however, that needs to be answered by a constitutional lawyer, and I am not a lawyer who's familiar with constitutional law in the United States. I think that there might be possible claims in terms of the massive misuse of funds that has taken place, and perhaps action could be taken in relation to these attempts by certain people to undermine the workings of the U.S. Constitution by bringing this campaign against the country's elected president and putting him in jeopardy and obstructing the conduct of his administration. But I'm not going to pretend that I know how it could be done and that I know the answers to these questions, because I don't. That is a sophisticated question. It requires a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer, familiar with U.S. constitutional law, which I am not.
But if there's people that definitely deserve justice, it's without a doubt Carter Page, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, these guys.
Okay.
I mean,
those people, I strongly, those individuals, they can sue. I mean, there is any doubt about this. I mean, I think that they have very, very good grounds. Certainly, Carter Page does, in my opinion, for a false investigation. I mean, it's been extraordinarily mishandled the way that he has been pursued. As for Papadopoulos and Flynn and the rest, I think the first step that should be taken is for Donald Trump to pardon them, and I've already said that before. I mean, I think that is the very first action that should be taken. Whether they have any claim going forward beyond that, I'm not so sure. But I think certainly in Michael Flynn's case, he was brought down as a result of a criminal act, which is the release of classified information to the media about these classified conversations he had with the Russian ambassador. and the fact that he'd been taped whilst having them. And in Papadopoulos' case, he was clearly led up the garden path by two people, Mifsud, this mysterious professor, and Halper, who looked like they were acting as agents provocateurs. And whoever was responsible for that, I think that was also very wrong, and should pay for it. And I suspect that they are legally liable for it.
Yeah, and an Australian diplomat as well. That looked like a complete setup in London for
Absolutely.
Papadopoulos.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I said, we haven't yet found out exactly who set all of that up. It seems that certainly the US intelligence community was involved, but I suspect that there were more people involved also. And there may be some questions to be asked of people in
I
London.
was going to say the same thing.
Yeah,
We're starting from
yeah,
the Steele dossier and the fact that Christopher Steele's an ex-MI6, and then you get to what happened to Papadopoulos in London, and you get to Halper, Mifsud, who are professors, I believe, in Cambridge or Oxford. I believe there's this U.S. deep state connection with the UK deep state, and it seems that they were coordinating a lot of their activities along with Australia as well. So you could say maybe some of the Five Eyes
of course.
coordinating their activities to
Of course
take
they were.
down Trump.
And can I add a few other points, which is, of course, right in the middle of the election, Bob Hannigan, who was the director of GCHQ, that's the British equivalent of the NSA, came over to the United States, met with the CIA, and gave them intelligence, which went into a dossier that was provided to Barack Obama, and which played a central role, apparently, that dossier, in getting the whole Russiagate investigation going in earnest. I would be very, very interested to know what all that was all about. I strongly suspect, in fact, I am sure, that what Hannigan was providing the CIA was extracts of Christopher Steele's dossier, amongst other things. But there is also no doubt at all in my mind that GCHQ and British intelligence generally were also carrying out surveillance of Trump campaign aides, including George Papadopoulos, who was, of course, based in London.
All right, there's a super chat from Legion Trooper, and it's, why is the UK causing so much trouble for Russia? That's a good question, and maybe that's a video that we'll also tackle one day, but I want to rephrase that a little in light of what we're talking about right now, the connection between the deep state of the US and the UK. Why does the UK cause so much trouble, or why did they cause so much trouble for Trump?
Right. Well, I think our questioner has actually put his finger on this. The British were horrified at Donald Trump's proposals to improve relations with Russia, and they went full out. They pulled out all the stops. First to prevent him being elected, and then to push him away from that course of a rapprochement with Russia. Now, why did the United States, why did the British have this intense animus towards Russia, going all the way, by the way, back to the 19th century? That is a gigantic subject. But what I'm going to do shortly after we've done this program is I'm going to provide a link on the Duran to an article I did for Consortium News several months ago, in which I discussed this very subject in great detail. And the title of that article is about the British establishment being blinded by Russophobia. And I explain why in that article, which is a long article to a great extent, Russophobia is so important here. There are psychological issues, which I don't really understand, but there are practical ones also.
All right, we got a super chat from Jazz. Thomas Paine from American Intelligence Media states that Clinton and Obama gang will never be indicted because she has dirt on Congress. True or false? And actually, I have a question going off of Jazz's question, Alexander, as you answer that. Do you think this goes all the way to Obama? All of it?
Yes, right. First of all, about the Clintons, I think this is one of the most depressing aspects of the whole Russiagate investigation, is that it has exposed both the very considerable corruption that swirls around them, and the absolutely central role that they now play within the Democratic Party and within the entire American political establishment, and with the extent of their influence in the US government and in the US's intelligence and security agencies. I don't think that has ever happened before in the history of the United States. It is a very serious issue. It cries out for investigation. I hope it is investigated. If it is true, I don't know that it is, that they have dirt on members of Congress, that might perhaps explain this extraordinarily dangerous influence that they have achieved. I should say that that would not be new in the United States. J. Edgar Hoover, who was for many years director of the FBI, possessed dirt on members of Congress and apparently used it in a very ruthless way to keep himself in office, perhaps long after he should have been retired. If Clintons have it, and perhaps their access to their control of people and the security and intelligence services explains how they might have obtained it, then that is a disastrous fact, and I hope it isn't true. But if it is true, it needs to be investigated and exposed, and if it brings down some people, some important people in Congress, well, too bad.
And what about Obama?
Yes, of course, Obama. Well, Obama
is he the person? I always think, is Hillary Clinton and the Clinton machine, are they the ones controlling Obama, or has Obama reached a level where he was on parity or even above Clinton, so he was directing all of this this attempt to prevent Trump, one, from getting into the White House, and two, which was essentially a soft coup against Trump? Was Obama
Yes.
pulling the strings?
Well, this is a very difficult question, because one of the things about Obama, first of all, I should make it absolutely clear, it is inconceivable to my mind that Obama, as President of the United States, was not fully informed about what was going on and was not, in fact, green-lighting it. So undoubtedly, he was involved. And as I've said previously, the key event that really got the investigation going in a really big way. Something was going on before, but it really began to become absolutely, momentous after the CIA briefed Obama. We know all about that because back in 2017, the Washington Post published a massive article which covered this. So Obama was definitely informed and probably involved in some way. There is a very famous poem in Britain by T.S. Eliot, who is, of course, actually American. He's an American born, but he became a British citizen. And it's about a cat called McCavity, who's a secret criminal. And the point about McCavity is that he commits all sorts of crimes, but when the police come, he is never there. McCavity's not there. And I've often felt the same is true about Obama. He is the McCavity president. All sorts of crimes or near crimes are committed on his watch. You know, wars in Syria, wars in Libya, this massive investigation of Donald Trump and his campaign, all this illegal surveillance and all of that. And somehow he isn't there. Now, whether that's because he's very clever at covering his tracks, or whether he was in some way semi-detached from his own administration, I think we need to find that out. Personally, I have no doubt, I have little doubt that it's the former, that he was very clever at covering his tracks. And for me, the big question of this whole scandal is, what did the president know? And when did he know it?
Right.
And that president is not Donald Trump. It is Barack Obama, who was president of the United States when all these bad things were done.
And that's a question that probably will never be answered.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah. All right.
But it is within the power
yeah.
of the American people to insist that it be answered, and it is within the power of their government to find out what the answer is. But whether that will happen, I have the same doubts as you.
Yeah, but given all the cover that Obama receives from the media, especially from the media,
Well, indeed.
I think it's
From the
something that,
media.
yeah, we'll never find out.
Exactly. Exactly. We'll never find out.
Even though I agree with you, I think the moment that tarmac meeting between Clinton and Lynch, I think that's the connection to Obama. And obviously Lynch was speaking on behalf
Yes.
of Obama. And to me, I kind of see that meeting as, they're coordinating their efforts. They're touching base,
Yes.
and they're putting their thoughts together, and they're coordinating their way forward as to how to take down Trump.
I think there was something else about that meeting, which is, of course, that it was conducted in semi-public. And I think that was, in a way, Bill Clinton coming along and, in effect, showing to Loretta Lynch and by extension to Barack Obama, this is me. I'm Bill Clinton. I'm the former president of the United States. I have all this massive leverage over you. You will do what I want. You will help my wife become president. And I think that was a very, very sinister event indeed. It has, people talk about the Clinton mafia. It's the kind of thing a mafioso does. It's like getting a visit, if you like, from Al Capone.
Yeah, because you could also make the argument, right? And you could
I'm
also,
sorry to put it that strong.
yeah, no. I think you're exactly
I
right.
did apologize. I did apologize for doing so.
No.
Carry on.
You're exactly right. And I think you could also say that, it was the Clintons, Bill Clintons and the Clinton mafia that I think told Obama, because now we'll get into the Democrat candidates for 2020, and one of them is Joe Biden. And I think it was the Clintons that told Obama, look, you're going to tell Biden it is not his turn. He is not going to run. He's not going to go up in 2016 and throw his hat in the ring. This is all about Hillary. And I think Obama took those marching orders very well, and he told Biden, back off. This is all about Hillary Clinton.
Well, yes,
Yes.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Alex. But as I said, I mean, it's. I mean, we're guessing.
Yeah,
we
guessing,
don't know. We should invest. There should be an investigation, and we should
Right.
find out.
Right. We're going a little bit down the rabbit hole, but it's late at night here, so why not? Anyway, guys, that was. Is there anything else you want to say, Alexander, as we wrap this up with the breaking news? With the breaking news about Barr's letter to lawmakers.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is, I mean, obviously we've been following this story very carefully. It was always clear to us that at the Duran that there was no truth to this, and I think our reporting of the whole Russiagate hoax, which we have been calling a hoax, or which you, Alex, were calling a hoax, has been vindicated. We're not the only people. I mean, you mentioned Byron York. There's Matt Taibbi, there's Aaron Mate, there's Glenn Greenwald, there's Sarah
Dan Bongino, there's mainstream media, there's alternative media, Tucker Carlson, Hannity, Laura Ingraham. Yeah, there's a lot.
Exactly. There's lots of good people. Jimmy Dore. Let's remember all those people who, many of them have had Caitlin Johnson, who've had to suffer terribly through all of this. I mean, we've been called all sorts of things, Russia apologists, Putin agents, conspiracy theorists, you name it, we've been called it, all of us collectively. And it was we who were right, and mainstream media that was totally and disastrously, and I'm going to say, appallingly and intentionally, because they were implicated in all of this, wrong.
Yeah, you could tell that by Rachel Maddow's tears yesterday, which was just brilliant to watch. Let's get to the final super chats. Sonia sent us a super chat before, I believe, but there wasn't a question to it. But I think we have another one from Sonia Arias, and it is why no one mentions Mueller and Rosenstein worked illegally without a crime predicate. Alexander.
Yes, well, if I may say,
you've always said that Rosenstein was a central player.
Absolutely. Well, dial back to our earlier interviews and some of our articles, and of course we have said it. The first thing to say is Rosenstein should never, ever have been involved in this investigation. He signed off on the FISA warrants to Carter Page. He was heavily involved in engineering James Comey's dismissal. And of course, we now know that he was part of a conspiracy, there's no other word to describe it, to try to get Donald Trump removed under the 25th Amendment. and was talking about, taping the president, with a wire on himself. So, I mean, Rosenstein should never have been involved. The second thing is, and this has been brought out extremely well by Andrew McCarthy on National Review. Andrew McCarthy is a federal prosecutor. The whole way in which Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel is incredibly dubious, because up to that point, Russiagate had not been a criminal investigation. It was a counter-espionage investigation. As our questioner correctly says, no crime up to that point had yet been found. And as somebody was appointed to investigate a crime of which there was no evidence at that time that it even existed. And we've spent 2 years now, and we finally got to the point where, in fact, we now know that there wasn't a crime. I mean, that's absolutely appalling. Now, we have said that. Some people, like as Andrew McCarthy has said it, Mueller's appointment has been challenged in court, principally, by the way, by Paul Manafort. He always managed somehow to persuade the various federal courts that his appointment was valid. Maybe this is something that should be looked into, and hopefully it will be, if these investigations into what really went on, are ever set up. I would add to that catalogue of Mueller and Rosenstein, who completely mishandled and acted so inappropriately in this affair, Jeff Sessions, who was the Attorney General of the United States, who failed to explain to Donald Trump before he was appointed Attorney General that he would recuse himself from the investigation, and who simply sat back and allowed the entire Justice Department to go amok on an investigation into a crime which didn't exist and which had never been found.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think the whole momentum switched when Sessions left and Barr was going to be taken on board. That's when I think everything changed.
Absolutely. And let's be very clear about this. William Barr is a much better lawyer anyway than Jeff Sessions. I mean, William Barr is somebody who could very, very easily find himself one day on the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, he's Chief Justice material. He is that good as a lawyer. You may not agree with his political views, but I'm talking about him as a lawyer now.
Yeah, let's get to the final super chats and wrap this up. From Jazz, due to relentless 24/7 fake news, over 40% of all Americans believe that Trump colluded with Russia. That is shocking and affects the 2020 election. Will the fake news media and the tech giants pay?
Well, that actually, I mean, you touch on a very sore point. The questioner touches on a very sore point, because one of the other things that has happened as a result of Russiagate is that we now have this extraordinary censorship that social media is imposing on all sorts of people like us, people who, as I discussed in response to a previous question, have been shown to have been the truth sayers in this matter. And I do hope, firstly, that the media, the mainstream media, is called to account for all the nonsense and outright lies and criminal leaks they have published, which have kept this a ridiculous conspiracy theory, because Russiagate is a conspiracy theory alive. I hope the American people, those of them that have been led astray by this nonsense and who believe this rubbish, that Donald Trump is an agent of the Russians and colluded with them, I hope that after, with this result from Mueller, they finally realize that they have been lied to and understand the truth. And I hope that these tech giants, who are now, I understand, being challenged in various ways legally, I hope that those challenges do lead to a proper reform of the way they operate, so that these restrictions, this censorship with these very strange and sinister informers like Prop or Not and New Knowledge and all the rest that have been appearing, that all that's put to rest, and the First Amendment of the Constitution is properly upheld, and that the United States becomes once again a country governed by the Constitution and by law, with freedom of expression extended to everyone and to people like us, and mainstream media, which has been proved so much at fault in this affair, not continue to be privileged in this unjust way in which it has been.
Yeah, something that many people don't mention is that this entire affair, this entire hoax, has essentially broken the internet. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Hillary Clinton. Thank you very much, Democrats in the DNC, Robert Mueller. You broke the internet. We are getting censorship now. We're having things happen to what was once an open platform for discussion. Open. And now it's just being shut down. Anyway, from Paul Perrin, a super chat, is obscene U.S. taxpayers funded the fat cat traders. Real quickly, Alexander, do you think these guys that committed this hoax should be classified as traitors?
No, I think we've got to be careful in our use of language. Treason is a word that is actually defined by the US Constitution itself, and it makes it very clear that it only applies when the United States is at war. So we should not, I think, talk about treason. What we should talk about is something I think equally bad, which is a conspiracy against the Constitution of the United States, because this was clearly an attempt to try and prevent the proper election of the president, the proper inauguration of the elected president, and to engineer his overthrow after his election and inauguration. So I think that is wholly wrong. And of course, I think it should be investigated. Whether it will be, we shall see.
All right. From It Was All a Dream, a super chat. David Ellis on Galloway Talk Radio show says the UK military committed to the EU secretly. I think that is something we're going to get into, Alexander, on a separate show, correct?
Absolutely, of course. I mean, and we can discuss this also on our on other programs. I think this is a big subject which does need to be discussed. But today we're going to focus on Russiagate because this is obviously the big news.
We will definitely get to what's going on in the UK for sure. Don't worry, that we're going to tackle as well. Thank you for that super chat from Paul Perrin. Didn't Trump know there's no evidence? Now he's
yes, of course he did. Yes, of course he did. He's been saying this all along. He's been talking about a witch hunt. He's been tweeting about no collusion, and he's been proved completely right. And let's say it. I mean, you know, Donald Trump is criticized for many things, but he is completely in the right about this one. And I hope that now, having been vindicated in this way or exonerated in this way, he has the courage and the political strength to move forward and take the offensive against his accusers, who have made his presidency over the last 2 years so difficult, and who have, as I said previously, disrupted the constitutional government of the United States.
All right. From E-Ray Reichley, why has the US, EU, UK, and France made Russia the villain of the entire world? This is a huge subject. You touched upon it a little bit, Alexander, with the UK and Russia.
Yes. I mean, I'm going to say this very, very briefly. I think that the United States, or not the United States, some people in the United States and some people in Britain and France, these are the three countries that have been driving this thing. After the Cold War, they got themselves persuaded that the end of history had arrived, that Western hegemony was forever. And I think they're very, very, very angry with the Russians, because the Russians won't accept that they were defeated during the Cold War and have come back and are resisting them. And for that reason, there's been an awful lot of spite and anger directed at Russia and at Russia's president. That's not the whole answer. That's not the whole answer to this enormous question. I mean, there are also great anger on the part of some people that Russia has not made its natural resources available to the West in the way that was expected that they would. And there are also, of course, specific questions of policy where Russian interests and Western interests have been in conflict in places like Syria, in places like Venezuela, and the rest. But this is a huge subject, and we'll need to go into it into much greater detail at some other point.
Yeah, and it's a huge racket. There's a lot of jobs and a lot of money to be a
Oh, well,
Russia
indeed,
hater. That's
that's
for
also
sure.
true. That's also true. I mean, you want to make a lot of money. I mean, that's the way to go. I mean, not to do what we do, which
Yeah.
is tell the truth on these subjects. But as I said, I mean, Rachel Maddow gets paid an awful lot more than we do.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. And from American Rebel, thank you, gentlemen. Your sessions are invaluable. Thank you very much. Let's see if we have any more super chats. I think that is everything. We got to all the questions. On the super chats, we covered a lot of ground. Alexander, the breaking news, of course, is that William Barr sent a 4-page letter to lawmakers. Alexander, Barr is saying that pretty much Trump did nothing, nor anyone around Trump did nothing. That is the bottom line.
Exactly. That is the bottom line.
And that's confirmed by
That
Barr.
is
So there you go.
the
There you
Attorney
have it.
General, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Rosenstein.
All right. Thank you guys for your questions. Thank you for tuning in. Everybody hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, spread the word about the Duran. Let's get people subscribed to our channel. Guys, pick up a t-shirt, Duran Shop. I got mine on. It's late at night here. It's time to go to sleep, Alexander, isn't it?
It certainly is,
Yeah,
yes.
we'll do a live show tomorrow. We've got a lot of videos in the pipeline. Tomorrow is actually Greek Independence Day.
It certainly is.
Yes.
It absolutely is.
And we
Big
will
day
be
for us.
and we will be putting up a video on Greece and Germany tomorrow as well. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all your questions and we appreciate all your support. I am going to sign off from Athens and go to sleep. Alexander, what are you going to do the rest of the night?
I'm going to cook supper. I was cooking supper when the news broke. So we're going to have a Dover sole and celeriac puree. So it was all
Sounds
put
good.
on.
All right, sounds good. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a good evening or a good morning if you're tuning in from Australia or anywhere you are in the world. Have a good day, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.